Welcome now to the Crank Revolution Podcast, your source for cycling shenanigans. Listen now to our hosts, the purveyors of pedals, as we teach you more about cycling every single episode. So sit right back, pop a cold one, and enjoy our show. It is now a time for another episode, the episode I have feared and dreared the most.
Really?
Yes.
You're afraid of this?
Is that not a word, dreared?
Dreary.
Dreaded.
Talking nonsense.
Dreaded. I'll go dreaded.
Talking nonsense already.
Well, here's why I dread it.
Hi, Jeremy.
When you do
Hi,
a
Jezza.
podcast or you do a lot of editing with video or audio, the thing you hate the most is your own voice. So now, this particular episode, for 10 hours, I'm going to be listening to myself talk to myself. It's going to be a very big exploration, I think.
You know where this is going to have to start. It's going to have to start in the childhood.
Oh, the childhood?
What
Wait.
went wrong?
with
No, we're not going to go
lamb
back
clan?
to. No, we're not going to go back into
with the
the
false
Scottish
tartan that he's
heritage.
currently wearing.
These are called pajama pants. We're in studio. There's no. Hey, I can
There's
be
a
wearing
tartan
suit.
on there, and it's not your family tartan.
Just saying. That is true. I think it's
Wow.
called plaid in this particular case, but
Well, plaid's of material.
it is.
And it's rad.
But the best part about being in a podcast studio is if we had video right now, I'd be wearing like a cummerbund, I'd be wearing like a suit jacket, and then just
Really?
keep the pants. Yeah.
I'd be
A
wearing-
cumber-
I'd be-
I don't
I
know.
would still have my hat half on my head under my headphones.
I'm going with the, where are you putting the cummerbund?
Hold
No, it
on.
goes around the waist,
Can we
doesn't
just
it?
mention he said nothing about a shirt? He said nothing about a pants.
Yeah.
Just cummerbund and a jacket.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll doll
I'm
it
glad
up.
I'm on this side of the table, so I wouldn't.
No, I'm going to use what is it? The bow tie. I'll put on a bow tie.
But
as
is it
well.
like a velvet smoking jacket, or like do you have tails?
Oh, geez, you need tails. Tails
But,
are
like,
classic.
I feel like this is a velvet smoking jacket, like sipping brandy kind of thing.
But the reason I've dreaded this the most is because then you have to reveal something about ourselves. Now, we learned all about Merck and his breaking away days chasing down semis through high school. We learned about TC and his formative years through the bike shop and growing up. And we learned a lot about Greg as well.
And Magic the Gathering.
And that you had a whole garage full of bicycles, I love to believe, came to life and just talked to each other about how your bike riding skills were.
yeah,
like a
there's the
Pixar
brave
movie.
little Huffy.
The brave little Huffy, was that what you called it?
No, why not?
But this is
Wait, we got to go back to the editing floor.
at 40 now, I want to look back at what bikes have really meant to me because I had a black hole, a massive black hole in bikes from middle school until running into TC many years later. What, 6 years ago now?
2014, yeah.
2014.
So
yeah.
you're an average
Wow.
American.
So from 94 to 2014, that's how long I was off a bicycle.
That's a good point, Greg. Average American.
yeah.
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 But for me, what it was is bikes, though. I fell in love with bikes as kids. I don't know why. I never fell out of love with them. I think I just discovered high school and girls and theater and all the other things that people run into.
Internal combustion engines.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sometimes,
you don't want to
yeah.
run into those though. You should get behind them.
I had a stick shift Honda. The first time I fell in love with a bike, I remember very clearly. My dad was an inventor. One of those crazy engineer
Oh,
inventors where he would come up and someone would bring him a problem. And he actually worked with bicycle companies like Sturmey Archer. And they say, here's what we want to build. We need an extrusion machine. We need to either it's going to be a pouring metal or however it is. And he would come up with the hydraulics, the pneumatics, any parts of it, whether it was the electrical aspects, the engineering, everything about it, he designed from scratch. So having that as a father, kind of a mad scientist, crazy tool and die guy that could build anything was really strange.
So you didn't buy a bike. He just made you bikes.
Well, we started with a bought bike, and it was a very cheap one. And the thing I love about it is imagine just how small the world is to a 5-year-old. You walk out your front door, the planter on your steps is enormous. It's the size of your torso. So when you'd walk down the steps, you'd see some friends across the street. I grew up in Berwyn. Go ahead. You know you want to do it.
Berwyn.
Yep, home of Sven Gulli.
I'm still just trying to think of your dad making you a bike where the frame goes
Here's where
over
we're
you
going.
and there's no but down to.
Well, and here's where we're going. So Berwyn is a typical grid-style city, kind of like a Chicago city where you have blocks,
I mean, it
you
is
have alleyways.
just outside of Chicago proper.
But with that grid-style layout, being 5 years old, my parents weren't the type of people to be like, go and see if you survive. They weren't overbearing. But when you walk down the steps as a 5-year-old, you see kids like 4 houses down, you'd be like, oh, I can go talk to them. I'll go ask. But anyone that was like more than 6 or 7 houses, you never got to meet.
Off the block, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it
Anytime
like
they were further down?
Was it like old video games where there's a fog of war that you physically could
No,
not
it was a
see those
physical
buildings?
barrier, like when you try to run off the actual map. It was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Flat
Oh,
earther?
Stephen King inside the dome. You just run right into it.
Well,
I would pay to see that. Please tell me you have that video.
the coolest thing it did for me
You
is
didn't have a phone in your pocket that took video? This-
Not in my simulation.
Wait,
The thing I love the most is how genuine Merc's laugh is right now. He's just like, "Oh, you silly child."
So my first bike, my dad actually taught me to ride, and he didn't horse collar me or choke me like some of your stories. He kind of did I'm going to push you and then just let go and see what happens. So we do that 20, 30 times.
Grip it and rip it.
But I had the knee pads. I had the elbow pads. Helmets weren't really necessary, I guess.
Well, that's
You don't want to skin your knee or your elbow.
Yeah, you can't have the
Don't worry about your head.
You can't have the bodily harm. You know.
Well, so you just wanted to crash like a turtle. You just had to put the elbows down and the knees down. That's how you had to do it. But now my dad, imagine a mad
Then?
scientist, big, long, spiky, crazy hair, in a plaid shirt that doesn't fit him, way too large, covered in grease from the tool and die shop, and then just pushing his kid and watching him crash 20 times. Took me like 20 or 30 times to go more than 10 feet.
He wasn't giggling at you at the same time, was he?
No, drinking a beer, Miller
Not-
Lite. Just,
not giggling at him, giggling with him.
So my bike handling skills, though, to this day probably haven't changed very much.
Yeah, 10 feet's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what that bike did?
What'd that do?
All those kids when I looked down the block that I always saw and thought, maybe one day I'll meet them. It's like a whole new world. I could actually ride down the block. Our group of 3 or 4 kids became 6 or 7 instantly. It was like the Goonies, not Stranger Things. But I remember the thing we used to do, though, is when you're on those grid pattern blocks, my mom would always say, you can go out, you can ride to the end of the blocks, but you cannot cross the street, and you can't go through the alley, and you can't go around the block. Because around the block, I mean, you were crossing that alley, going on the other side, and that's like a whole different universe. That was a different country.
Do they
I
speak English on that street?
Don't know.
Oh, don't know. Yeah, because at 6
Never
years
went there.
old, how far can you really go? But you know what was really cool to me? Having that crazy inventor dad. I had car-style headlights. And we're talking about those rectangle 3-pound glass reflector-style headlights.
Please tell me you had the pop 'em up lights.
No.
Actually, my question is, did you have the power supply on the wheel?
No, they were not dynamo. My dad
Okay.
actually wired one of like 6-volt lantern batteries sticking out the back of my seat, and it would run those car-style headlights up on front. So it would put out a ton of heat. The battery would go dead in 10 minutes, but no one else in town had that. That was crazy.
And you blinded every
yeah.
driver that
Yeah.
went by you.
And then one day I told my dad, I'm like, I wish I had one of those horns. He goes, you don't want a horn. You want an electric horn. And this is like 87, man. That was a big ask.
I'm learning so much about your personality in just
Oh,
that
yeah,
3
yeah.
sentences there.
Well, I did learn something. If it doesn't exist, if you don't have it, just go ahead and build it, engineer or design it. It was kind of a cool way to grow up that way.
Yeah,
and all the kids were jealous.
And now I really kind of see how you are now.
Yeah.
I understand now.
I always just assumed it was like, electrical trauma, but
No.
This was by
Well,
design.
with that battery in front of him, maybe.
That's true. Did you have a flux capacitor on your bike?
No, but fun story. One of my friends did lick both connections on a lantern battery. And we learned that there's more to just the number of volts to a shock. That we did learn very quickly.
Yeah,
Is
the
he
volt.
still
the,
alive?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's good.
That's
I
fine.
mean, I lick one
He
today.
twitches a
It
little bit
hurts,
now.
but- So I had those car headlights. I had the electric horn. I had those things going from a very young age. What was the coolest tech you had on your bike, Greg, growing up?
I had these little plastic beads that went up and down on my spokes.
Pokey dokes.
What was your favorite, Merc?
Just my light with the dynamo.
That is pretty cool.
It is, yeah.
I mean, yeah, as an adult, that's still pretty cool.
What was
Maybe.
yours? Tease?
And I was the kid with pegs that would tow other kids around the neighborhood.
Wait, so you'd tie a rope to your peg and drag them, or
No, like they would stand on the pegs and I would be the one pedaling for 2 people.
Why didn't I do that? That makes so
That's
much
how-
more
yeah.
sense than tying someone by the waist.
Yeah, makes a lot more sense.
For me, it was the beads. I don't remember what they were called, but
Spokey
the little
dokes.
beads.
Why do you guys
Spokey
not
dokes.
remember
Spoke
this?
beads.
Spokey dokes.
Ah, but we went
Pokey
further.
dokes.
Spokey dokes.
Spokey dokes.
But then we got really, really cool. You know what we did?
Playing card?
Tops playing cards.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm afraid of that is many years later, when I was 10 or 11, we used to go to the coining card shop where they have like Mickey Mantle $2,000 cards.
And you
I
shove-
inherited my baseball cards. And to this day, I'm cringing to think of what I might have destroyed.
Oh my God.
Because I did have at one point like a Ryan Sandberg rookie card, if anyone follows back there. Don't know if that's worth anything today.
It's my,
Andy
it's my
Samberg?
grandmother's
No.
favorite cub,
Yeah.
Ryan Sandberg.
Yeah. Looking back to childhood, we probably lost so much value in those things. Did any of you guys put the baseball cards in the thing? Or what was
And
it
so
for
I'm
you
gonna
guys?
say that,
Pokemon?
like,
Magic?
In my lifetime, it was really the Beanie Babies. Had
How
like,
did you put that
You
in a
put those in your
spoke?
spokes?
Oh no, I thought that thing that we lost so much value on.
Oh,
That's what I was the like. You bought that Beanie Baby and like, oh, this Beanie Baby's worth $400. Like, no, it's not.
Well, I was thinking, man, if you,
Dada.
I'm imagining TC goes back to the store, the head's ripped off. He goes, "It didn't make a noise in my bike." Trying to get his refund. fun.
Oh, but it just got insane, and it was just a destruction of trees and paper at this point because one kid had one baseball card, then somebody did 2, then somebody did 4. Those
was the
seed
Cold
stays
War.
were just covered.
It's
And then you did
baseball
Beanie
card Cold
Babies.
War.
Yeah, what did
Well,
that
I mean,
sound
like, I like how the progression of one card in there, and it's like, oh well, their hub was X Loud, and then
Yeah.
then they got the Chris King, which was
Chris
54 points per
King
game.
is the
That's-
hub
and
for
then
people who have baseball
You just
cards.
keep getting louder and louder hubs.
Yeah.
That's the same, so that we're
It's
doing the
aimed
same
today.
thing as adults. Yeah.
Well, it's because we're all
Same
the adults
concept.
that did
That's
that as
the-
kids.
That
Yeah.
explains so much in this industry.
Did anyone else have any fun noise making things on bikes though?
No.
Me.
You?
I made just lots of random noises because, well, the first few years, actually, my parents were doing a lot of auto racing, so it was always around engines. So it's like, this is what a Porsche sounds like. This is what a Harley sounds like. Like everything just sounded
the
the same.
leg is-
Sounded the same.
The leg as a motor doesn't make a satisfying sound. That's the problem.
Well, if it does, that's a problem.
Time for
Like snap,
replacement
snap
from
on
the
knee as
mechanics.
you go through, yeah.
Thinking of that black hole from 94 to 2014, so that's 20 years. One thing that I carried into my adulthood that I didn't understand was wrong when I was a child, or not wrong, but different in the bike world, was you went from the 12-inch to 18-inch to 20-inch to 24-inch to 26. And when you hit 26-inch, you were a big boy.
Yep.
That was your adult bike. So many, many years later, I look back and the frame size and the wheel size were kind of one and the same. So that bit me in the butt actually many, many years later when I went to go buy a bike. I'm like, I'm going to get the 26-inch. Way too small. Turns out that's not how frame size
I'm just imagining a bunch of 8-year-olds.
Well, no, 26-inch frame is a very, very
Well, no,
very
26-inch
large
wheel.
That
I
was-
just went to get this service merchandise. They had the Iron Man mountain bike. I had actually picked it up, and it turned out I don't understand the frame could
That's
be way
just
too
an
small.
oxymoron.
Hold on. Was
Yeah,
this
Iron
a
Man
Marvel
mountain bike.
Iron Man?
It was.
or-
No, I could pull up pictures. So frame size, I didn't realize that wheel size is independent of frame size. And that's something I had to learn all the way back in 2014.
That is always the hard one because I remember customers coming in going, we need a 26-inch bike. No, that would be a very large frame for your child. No, we need a 20. Okay.
So frame size, and that's something that I don't know if everyone connects to because box stores still do that.
Mhm.
They kind of have those different sizes.
Yeah.
They do say 26-inch adult bike at least, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one that really got me, though, my favorite bike, and I look back with such fond memories, and there's no way I'm going to pick one up, although I did secretly look on Craigslist Marketplace and eBay recently, and I might buy one anyhow. It was the Huffy 26-inch Stalker. Who in the marketing department of Huffy thought, we're going to put a bunch of children on Stalkers?
Well, no, it's
What
fine
year
for
was this?
children. It's not good for adults.
No, but if you do
No,
the...
it's not fine for children.
No,
It's
just
still a
imagining as an
bad
adult the
name.
police report. What was he on? He was on a Huffy Stalker. Well, yeah. It was on. It was right there.
Mine was gloss black, but also had these raindrop finishes on it, which I thought was the coolest thing in
Like,
the world.
Was it like 90s spackle paint?
Yeah, like spackle paint.
that was like mine.
But it was
90s were
gloss.
great.
But I look back now, that just means that basically they had a frame where they're like, just spray them all, and when they drip on each other, it's fine.
But that was the 90s.
the
That's what
aesthetics,
it
yeah.
was. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the aesthetics of the 90s.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I love that bike. And if I did buy one today, it would be purely to tell people not to buy that bike, because that's kind of how it works.
It's
You're gonna-
not easy to buy that bike.
Are you-
from
Oh, there's like 50 of
1993.
them still. No, there's like a
True,
ton of
but
them.
yeah.
Well, the thing that's hard about finding that exact bike I had back then, though,
The Stalker.
they kept the Stalker name for apparently decades because there's a full suspension Stalker. They had like a whole product of Stalker line. Yeah. Thanks, Huffy. Good job there. But the one thing that bike did for me is I finally started exploring far.
So you would come home as soon as your pager went off. Then
No, didn't even have pagers by then. No,
Not even the gum pager?
That was like high school.
But
man.
wait, so your dad loved adding tech to bikes. So you didn't have a bike phone?
No.
You know, like
didn't
a
have
car
bike
phone, bike phone?
No.
Could
didn't
you
even have an
imagine that?
Obama phone.
Charged by the dynamo.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining a kickstand
The
that comes
bag
down
phone.
to lift the back wheel.
Yep.
You just pedal to make a call.
Nope. That was right before high school started, and I still had that bike. I was trying to think back what happened to that bike. It was probably stolen. Coming out of high school, didn't have a bike. I had my stick shift Honda. Things were happy. I kept eating. I was skinny in high school at one point. Fit, 32-inch waist.
Was that because you're a cross country runner and water
Wait.
poloer,
No,
and
no.
basketball player?
I had 20 years with no bikes. So what kind of got me back into it then is my daughter. She saw I kept getting bigger and bigger. When I was 24, my metabolism just kind of stopped. And apparently, like, you can't eat a whole pizza anymore. And
Well,
if you do, you get big.
Well,
really
can
big.
or should.
Well, and that's the thing. So when I got up to, I want to say, I remember the exact moment that I knew my life had to change. I was at Brookfield Zoo again. It seems like all my life revolves around the zoo.
Yeah.
I was
It's a
at
good
the
story. It's a good
pachyderm.
one.
I was at the pachyderm exhibit. And my daughter's there, my wife is there, and I walk in, and my daughter jumps up, and she's on there. She's like 45, 50 pounds. My wife jumps on. She's like 120 pounds. I jump on. It pops up to 285. I looked at it and went, must not be accurate at the higher numbers. I mean, spring must be bad.
It's one of those logarithmic scales.
And-
That's the problem.
And the thing, bless her heart, my wife looks at me and goes, you're not really that heavy, are you? And I thought to myself, dear God, it was like this existential
hope I'm
crisis of, because we remember our best selves sometimes when we look back,
Yeah.
and then we don't always look in the mirror and go, comparison, am I still there? So in my particular case, I was like, man, I really did put it on. So she says, Dad, let's go get bikes. Thought to myself, I remember those days. We went and got a bike. It was the wrong bike. I didn't know what kind of bike I wanted. So that's the advice I always give people. How fast, how far, TC, we've talked about it so many times. But have an idea what you want when you go in. Because I got nailed onto a hybrid that was what was it?
Well, they didn't nail you to it.
Well, I said, hey, I want a great bike. And they're like, this one's on sale and it hasn't sold in a while. It's the
And
best deal you'll ever find.
It might have been a 26-inch.
No. Yeah.
Frame
actually it
size or
was.
wheel size?
Yeah, no. But the frame was for somebody 6'4".
Yeah, it was an extra large frame.
Yeah.
Or 2X. Or,
Yeah. But I was excited because that weird in-between bike I had back in, let's say, 2001 in the dead years, I bought that Ironman bike from Service Merchandise. And it didn't fit me at all, so I actually gave it to one of my employees. I almost got reignited on bikes. But for me, running into TC was obviously a big formative change. We've talked about this a little bit, and then, of course, I ran into all of you. The thing that I still can't figure out, though, was the trajectory change. in
How
my
you ran
career.
into each one of us?
No.
Oh, yeah, the
Oh,
career one's
No,
good.
in the career, I went from business owner to doing all of these things, and I just realized I wasn't happy. And at one point when I was commuting to work, I was going 26, 30 miles a day for like a whole year. And looking back, that was kind of weird. You know why? It kind of really cemented, I think, with TC when I kept coming in, is that day he said to me, yes, you can commute. Anyone commutes 25, 30 miles a day.
It's that hype
For me-
man. Yeah, you can totally do it.
Yeah. Cycling really changed my life. And now, before we dive into an exploration of e-bikes, let's cut to TC in From the Mechanic's Mouth.
So yeah, if we're going to be talking about e-bikes, there's a few e-bike actually specific components that are very, very important. Most commonly what you'll see on e-bikes, because they're heavier, because they're going faster, they're going to have basically better stopping power, better brakes. So like a slightly larger rotor, or going from a twin piston to a quad piston brake. But one of the e-bike specific components that I'm a huge, huge fan of is the e-bike specific shifter. So on my bikes, both my mountain bikes, I do have an e-bike specific shifter. What that does, it only allows one shift in either direction. So one shift up, one shift down for that rear derailleur, which allows you to engage the chain better and have better rotation and not break as many chains. If you were to put a traditional shifter on that e-bike and crank through 3 or 4 gears at once, with how much twist and how much power is going to that chain, there's a good chance that it would break rather consistently. So yeah, e-bike specific shifters are a really great thing, and I highly recommend them. And that's From the Mechanic's Mouth.
The year is 2020. Long gone were the days where you had to pedal yourself around unassisted. Why? Because this is the future, and in 2015, we didn't get flying cars, so now you need to get yourself a motored bike. And not just a motored one, a battery-powered bike. Yes. Think about this. All the future technology that existed in the Pro Peloton for years is now available for everybody to ride, because e-bikes are brand new. Here we go in 2020. TC.
All right, so gotta do a little critique here to start. Well, yeah, so they're not motorbikes.
Oh, they're not?
Yep. So they're e-bikes, because motorbike refers to like a motor.
But they're new,
and
right?
Engines. No, they've been around for like
Oh.
30 years.
Oh. So,
Yeah, about 30
they have.
years.
but
yeah.
it is 2020, right?
It is 2020. Yeah.
Okay,
I
at least
think
one
so.
part of that
Yeah, at
opener
least
was
part of
good.
that's right. But no, so
Oh wait, can I interject? Yeah, the Pro Peloton still doesn't use motors either.
Well, officially.
Oh, well.
officially,
Officially, they don't.
Gonna stand by that one.
you know,
There's got to be a better
There-
way to find out than heat vision, just saying.
when someone crashes and their bike is laying on the ground and then spontaneously begins to turn because the cranks start turning.
Oh, no, that was explained by physics. It was a downhill with an off-camber
Yes,
turn, and that's
naturally.
why I took off
Yeah.
on him. Yeah.
And Contador had bad meat. That's why he tested positive.
So
Yes.
aside from that, though, what is the future of electric bikes, TC, in your opinion?
I mean, the future is bright for electric bikes. Can I get that to rhyme? I mean, it's close. But so, yeah, e-bikes are really, I mean, to say they're new, yeah, they're not new, but actually the technology's advancing so rapidly. What they're able to do, what kind of iterations they now exist in. I mean, there's so much more going on in e-bikes today where you have the top-end road bikes being produced in an e-bike form.
yeah.
And so, I mean, you provide this level of ability and access to riding, and me from personal experience, a lot of different variation in it. So yeah, you've got e-mountain bikes, you've got e-comfort bikes, e-commuting bikes, road gravel bikes. I mean, if you can make a bike, you can put a motor on it, and yeah, the technology's really great. So you're going a lot farther. I guess regulation's kind of a thing here.
Yeah.
There's
I mean,
a little bit of
the U.S. is still in its infancy
Very much so.
on e-bikes. I mean, if you go over to Europe, e-bike
Yes.
is definitely a way of life because there's a lot more commuting by bike versus by car
it's
there.
huge, yeah.
What they have versus what we have right now, we're way far behind.
True, but also I'm going to be a big point as to, with e-bikes, they are bikes. And so as I'm going to use, we're going to take a step here, we're going to define what are e-bikes. So in this room with the four of us here, e-bikes are pedal assist. And so that's a pretty popular term in the e-bike world, where that means there isn't a throttle. There isn't this lay down on the gas, don't pedal, and just crank yourself through.
So it's not like my Vespa.
It's not a Vespa. It's
Oh.
not
Razor scooter.
It's not a combustion engine. You didn't put a weed whacker motor on there. These are.
I've ridden with that guy. Don't be that guy, listeners.
It's really loud and messy, and
He was on the front at a red light. Anyway.
so e-bikes are electronic assist bikes. They kind of come with two different styles of motors. What's most popular nowadays is the bottom bracket crank driven motor. So it's actually typically like a sprag clutch holding the chainring on, and as you're pedaling through, that clutch will engage with the motor assist. But if you have the bike turned off, the motor's not there, you're pedaling normally like anything else, just on a generally 35
Well, and they've
to
gone through a
40
lot of
bike.
iterations too, because I remember one of the craziest ones I saw was the Copenhagen wheel. It was this massive spoked red disc that had a motor built into the wheel.
And that still exists.
Yeah.
And so yeah, hub drive motors were kind of an earlier iteration, I'll say, because now the manufacturers have jumped on in this. You have actually these bikes designed around the motor platform. The wheels, like the Copenhagen wheel or some other kind of hub-driven e-bike motor system, those were kind of adaptable to a lot of bikes. Not always in the most recommended from a bicycle mechanic's perspective situation, but the bikes that are designed around them, I mean, it's really growing nicely because it's such a clean. You're taking the wheels on and off with the crank-driven ones totally normally. There's no change in what you're doing,
Right.
and so as opposed to the hub ones where you had to figure out your way around the controller or the wire that was holding that rear wheel on, or front wheel sometimes.
Well, and the other thing too for me is bike handling comes down quite a bit, and it seems to me,
Especially
at least
for
from
you.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Craig.
You're welcome.
But one thing I'll say is having the bottom bracket motor, it seems to really plant the weight of the whole device nicely on the bike.
And so, yeah, that's, I'll say, really kind of started in the mountain bike world, was that bottom bracket motor style drive. And so that puts all of that weight for the battery typically in the down tube, and then the bottom bracket motor, all that weight's really nice, low, and centralized. So it makes a very stable ride. And that's, personal experience, lots of time on these bikes, very stable, very comfortable, even in the air. I have done about a 10-foot jump on a e-bike, e-mountain bike. Yeah. And it's
Wow.
very stable.
So wait, was it?
Wow.
You went forward 10 feet or you dropped 10 feet?
I cleared 10 feet.
He got sendy with it, I think is what he's saying.
Oh, no. So if
No,
I
that's
dropped
the
10
gnar.
feet, that'd be a 10-foot drop.
Yeah.
This was a
That would be something I would do on a mountain bike. Just drop
10-foot fall.
10 foot.
I've
yeah.
fallen on a
that.
bike.
Yeah.
It'd be fall.
I've fallen on a bike and went 10 feet. Does that
Nope,
count?
doesn't count.
Okay.
I've fallen on a bike and gone almost 10 feet from
it's
where
not a competition,
I was to
TC.
where the ground was, and that really hurt.
But that's a
And there's a
awesome.
great
That's an
photo of it in
awesome
the
photo,
shop.
though. So the motor that you sent 10 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, are you talking a Bosch motor? Are you talking a Shimano E-Step motor?
Oh, now we're getting technical.
Now we're getting
Let's
technical
get
to the who are the main players in this game. So mine was on a Brose motor.
I'm sorry,
What?
one more time.
Brose.
Brosa?
Gesundheit.
What's that? It was a bottom
Gesundheit.
bracket drive. So that's a similar German manufacturer like Bosch. But yeah, they are what Specialized uses for most of their motors.
Because going back to what Jeremy was saying, the Copenhagen motor, and then Shimano also makes a hub-driven motor, I believe. trying to remember. That one's a tough
That
one.
might be on you there. I don't know.
They might have made one at one point.
I'm sure they did because Shimano has patents for absolutely
everyone's played
everything.
with it. Yeah.
But yeah, the Copenhagen motor is probably the most popular one, and it is that big red disc.
Yeah.
That's what you always remember on it.
Yeah, it's very recognizable.
So is the battery stored in the hub? Like,
Yeah.
in theory, you could just set it up vertically, and if you just get the right switch, it'll just roll itself away.
Huh?
Well, if the battery and the motor are both in the hub,
and if the controller fails, because
Yeah.
there's torque sensors. That's how they use these things. Yeah, they're using power meters to measure how much torque the rider's applying, and then building a multiplier off of that for the assist.
Yeah, and I think that's where the
Most companies.
biggest issue a lot of people don't understand is when you stop pedaling,
The motor stops.
the motor stops.
so it won't. I can't just go uphill without working.
Correct.
And so some of the mountain bikes you can. They have what's called walk assist. And so that
Good
is
point. That
because
is a
they're
very good point.
the bike.
because they're 40 pounds and they're sometimes difficult to maneuver, you have a push button kind of go, and I think the max is typically 2 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you hop off and you
That sounds
it goes
exhausting.
real slow. But it's for navigating some really difficult technical mountain bike trail sections. It's very pleasant. Very
Please
nice
tell
to
me
have.
they come with a horn, an electric horn. I just want to like emulate like.
The commuter ones did.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
You
What
really
about the
honk
bears?
at?
That's when you need it the most. Because bears.
when you when you go into that walk assist, you really can feel the
Yeah.
motor kick on too. It's kind of cool.
Well, I can imagine that for mountain biking too. I've always wondered, and some of those cruisers, of course, it's because they're very, very heavy. We've seen 40 and 50-pound electric cruisers before. And to be able to push those out of your garage or go up a hill, sure. But on a mountain bike, I'm trying to imagine trying to like navigate trees and roots and have to drag it up by the front wheel on some of them.
Well, it's not like a mountain biking.
Drag it up by the front.
Yeah, I mean,
you got the
if
same
you're
visual
gonna-
in my mind.
if you're gonna
Actually,
get off,
I'm right there with him.
if you're going to
tonight.
get off, no,
Why are you laying down, pulling it? By
no,
the
no, no.
front wheel?
Because here's the
It's
question:
really steep. It's
why
like a
would you get
2%
off the
grade.
mountain bike? Why would you get off the mountain bike to walk assist a mountain bike?
Rocks. Sometimes you can't always ride the rocks that you see, so you walk it up the rocks.
Or a really steep
Mm.
hill like I would do. And I'm
And-
still trying to see you grabbing it by the front
yeah.
wheel,
Drag
dragging it.
But I will say, like, I'm not sure how much experience you have steep hills with mountain bikes. You can climb like things that I can't pedal up. I can ride up. It's ridiculous the amount of power that you can put down.
We'll talk this summer.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it's-
trying to
You're not going to be able to
envision
find
the
it in
situation.
Illinois.
Yeah,
we'll
well,
have
yeah.
to go to Utah and do it. But yeah,
So-
it's awesome.
So then, what are some of the rules though around e-bikes? I mean, I can't imagine that it's everything's going to have this walk assist, or you'll have all the power you need to go up every hill in a metropolitan
So we're talking
area.
rules as in like
Governance.
manufacture. Okay.
There used to be, back when e-bikes started coming into the U.S., they were governed at 20 miles per hour, and they couldn't go over 20 miles per hour.
Did they vote
Well,
on that?
when we say governed,
Yeah.
let's clarify, because for me, governance or governed motors was NASCAR, where they try to make everyone on the same playing field. So
Right.
so what's going on there?
It's the same concept.
So the moment that the motor reads that it's going above, like the system reads it's going above 20 miles an hour, it cuts.
It cuts, yeah. So, but right now, I know that they've laxed it, and there are e-bikes that are coming out that you can do 28 is the top speed.
Yeah, it's
I
way
love
fun.
when you do that. You
I
get
can
so
finally
excited.
ride 28 miles an hour. This
You
is
can
incredible.
finally ride 28 miles per
You
hour.
can maintain 20 miles an hour for like an hour on
yeah,
whatever roads. It's ridiculous.
exactly. I was just going to
It's
bring that
a
up.
lot of
If
effort
you're-
still, but
If you're going to go that fast in that mode, you're killing the battery fast.
yep.
Oh yeah.
So, what
Lots
is
of energy
recharge
drain.
time like on that?
And so it's going to be different manufacturer to manufacturer. Generally speaking, most commonly what I see there's a lot of different battery sizes, but at least 3 to 4 hours at the very least. It can be sometimes up to 6 or 8, but it's depending on what battery. There's so many factors that go into that.
I'm going to assume it's just like electric cars, where everyone has agreed on one platform for the cable to plug in.
Well, it's the
and
bike
the world's
industry.
easy.
Yeah, the word standard exists. Oh wait, no,
yeah.
there is no standard. Everything's in flux always.
So you're not going to be able to run down to Best Buy to get a new power cord when your dog
Nope.
eats it.
Actually, for some of them you could.
Yeah.
Some of them are running typical waterproof connectors. So like a Rosenberger plug is a fairly uniform one, but also the batteries do have very specific kind of charging notes as to current amperage, all of this. So some of the some of the tech in there gets really important. So yeah, you don't want to use third-party chargers for your e-bike batteries.
Well, that's true of cell phones too. Wait a minute. No.
Exactly.
And that's I think where if e-bikes are really going to take off, you have to get to is right now. I mean, if you have Android, you have Apple, you can always find a charger with somebody at work or something. Now for e-bikes though, if you don't have your charger and you're dead, Where are we going to see? Are there 2
you're dead.
types,
It doesn't
5
matter.
types, 10 types?
You're dead then. It
The
doesn't.
rider? Okay, well.
Oh,
So,
the bike.
Well, technically,
How
you're
many
not dead. You can
types
still
of-
pedal
no,
the
he
bike.
said you're dead. That's
How many types
Oh,
of chargers have you
then.
seen out
You've
there?
died of dysentery and dead battery.
yeah, on the Oregon Trail. How many different
Connectors,
types
yeah.
are
How
there?
many types of connectors have you seen?
I've seen 4. There's far more than that, but I'm going based off of like major manufacturers.
Yeah,
Well,
well, just
just
going to say
like-
major manufacturer.
Yeah.
There's 4.
And just like the cell phone industry, you just have to get the European Union to start telling everyone you're all using the same cable. This
But
is
there's
ridiculous.
Also, some now that have gone from the is the mini micro. What's that?
the USB.
No, like mini USB.
yeah.
micro- yeah. There's
USB-C.
the first plug, and then the new generation of that plug, which is it doesn't fit in the old one, but
Well, no, that was the European Union who said if you're going to sell in Europe, you all have to be on the same connector because it's ridiculous that every new LG, Samsung, and Motorola phone all had a new cable.
Even Apple?
They've only done it twice, and get ready for the third one next year.
God.
so yeah, no point in going in deep on connectors.
No, that's fair.
No, but there's several different types of connectors out there. That's going to be a big deal as things move forward. I'd like to see some standardization. How's that sound?
I mean, so in America, standardization is just not going to happen because each state has different laws about e-bikes and accessibility. Sometimes even like county to county or trail to trail.
Yeah.
It can be very different.
Wait, so you mean I can't ride my e-bike where I would normally just ride my bike? Now there's rules on that?
Well, there's always rules.
Sometimes, yeah.
But that's a really difficult question to answer.
Yeah, but here's the thing is that what we're saying is from county to county in Illinois, I don't know of any regulations right now.
And that's right now because I feel like every 6 months somebody changes,
Yeah.
and so it's right now it's far too in flux to be able to make a good. This is generally how it works. Basically, you can always check with your local forest reserve district, or look up e-bikes in whatever state you're at to get an idea of what's currently available and what's currently kind of the trends. Or ask your local bike shop. Your local bike shop should be paying attention to these things, and should have some kind of way to guide you into your e-bike exploration.
And to help out, don't be crazy on the trails if you're on an e-bike.
Yes,
Don't
and
go
so,
whipping by somebody at 30 miles per hour.
Don't pass a horse on an e-bike? Is that the
Well,
Yeah, that's
no,
bad.
So someone's decided to stop in their local bike shop to hear some of the rules on e-bikes. Maybe they're going to look to buy one. What are some of the things they should take into consideration?
Always
So-
buy from a reputable bike shop. That's the biggest thing.
and that's why it's if you're at a bike shop already, you're doing the right thing.
So I've stopped into my bike shop in order to learn more about e-bikes rules on the trails and everything. But when it comes to buying an e-bike, is there anything specific I should make sure I know in advance?
Always make sure that the bike has at least disc brakes on it. That's the biggest thing. Going to a reputable bike shop, which you're already there, they will guide you in the right direction.
So if you have an e-bike, you know the rules on where to ride and how to ride. What are you riding?
I own 2 e-bikes. So I've got a Specialized Turbo Levo Fat and a Specialized Turbo Levo Carbon. So that's a full suspension mountain bike and a e-fat bike. I ride these things exclusively off-road and exclusively through kind of one of my things with the full suspension bike. Riding the trails is what I was in Utah. It was a lot of fun. Also a lot of work. Utah riding is a lot of times climbing for 45 minutes and then descending for about a half hour. So it's a lot of effort, especially early in the season. The e-bike allowed me to ride twice as long as I normally would because my fitness wasn't quite there. But yeah, the ancillary stuff, comfort and cornering, all of that kind of really definitely holds true as you progress from the e-bike to the traditional bike, as I would throughout the season.
Plus, you're going so much faster in the downhills with that extra weight.
You're not.
Oh,
You want to maintain similar control and stability, and you can because you're not pedaling. Yeah, the weight is really the motor really doesn't kick in when descending. It really only helps you. And as my experience was, got 3 different levels of assist on the one that I have. On the low setting, it was good. It's just a little bit like a extra little 50% kick, just kind of moved me along nice and easy, very controlled. Second level was I was like getting a workout in, really pushing, and now I'm going really fast. I'm thinking about cornering like I would on a descent as I'm climbing. The third level is just that like ludicrous mode, just like climbing at breakneck speed and just like like
y'all gonna make me break my spoke, break my spoke, break my spoke. Sorry.
Your fault, TC.
really?
You said ludicrous speed.
But what is it?
I think the one thing that you mentioned, though, I can definitely see it because everyone loves descending. Not everyone loves climbing. And if you've gone down once or twice, Sometimes you might not want to go up that third time.
Yeah.
The e-bike is going to open that up to you where it's much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I kind of have a question with the lower center of gravity because of the motor cornering through the descent. Did you see any difference in that?
As I ride the e-bike, and I don't have most folks who can talk really intelligently about this come from a moto background, dirt bikes, motorbike, that stuff. That's really where you get the good nomenclature for what this is. And it's not that I ride necessarily all that much faster, but yeah, definitely just more controlled in leaning into a corner, knowing that I do have that power to kind of kick me out if I need to, so I can pedal my way out of trickier situations with the added power. So it's not as technically dainty, I'll say, as I do with a traditional light full suspension bike, but yeah, definitely a more powerful style of riding.
Okay.
Now, Merc, with all the e-bike experience you've had the same issue or benefit of having that extra weight on the bottom bracket, right?
No.
No?
Mine's completely comfort. Absolutely sitting low, going nice and slow, getting up those steep hills.
I'm noticing your arms are like
My
at
arms
shoulder
go
level.
up. Absolutely. Arms go up.
You look like you're on a beach
Ape hangers, beach cruiser.
Easy rider style.
Exactly. It makes it so much easier if you're just out on leisurely ride to have that assist. You can go a little bit further, go get a good lunch somewhere, come back, take your time, go a little bit farther.
So get outside, enjoy the weather, but don't have to worry about
Sweating.
Yeah, that's true.
having that awkward wet patch on your pants from
Correct.
sitting on the
Yes.
saddle on a hot day. Well, I mean, so you've got the very comfortable level of riding. So the natural progression would be then commuting, which, Jeremy, I think you've had a little bit of experience on.
Well, I've had a
this.
couple fun times on electric bikes. One thing I'll say is if it's 95 degrees and it's nice and hot out, you're going to go take 20 people on a group ride and you don't want to get sweaty and you bring out an e-bike, you will get some dirty looks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pulling through the trail, I'm just cruising along at 20. Everyone else is sweating, having a really stinky old time, and I just felt great. It was fun. Yeah, but the more fun I had, of course, is I stole TC's Levo there for a bit. And to put that into perspective, when he said motocross style, like those dirt bikes you always see, big, beefy, full suspension, that's what this bike is. Massive tires on that TC. What are those?
Those are 6-fat, 27.5 by 2.8.
One thing I'll say is, so he suggested to myself that I start riding that into work. So I did ride it into work a couple of times. And the one thing about that particular bike, and now what level bike is it? That's a full carbon
Yeah, it's carbon frame.
e-bike. Yeah. So when it makes me more daring than I probably should be.
Yeah.
When coming
I
down
noticed
the
a
other
new
side.
scratch on it, but yeah.
I don't know about that. But what I will say is coming down on the bridge on the other side, instead of taking the typical trail, if you see something that goes down and ramps up on the other side, you feel really motivated to push for it. It's awesome. It really is.
And so one thing that we haven't done with the e-bike yet is have you come on a mountain bike ride with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still won't keep up, though.
Well,
I could have all the power in the world.
and that's, you won't keep up because you'll be crashing is how I see it. Because you've got all the power in the world. It's the, we're going to go back to Gran Turismo. Like anyone can fire a bullet, but few can steer it.
Ooh.
Yeah, that kind of idea.
Wow.
When you do your video of you two going through the forest doing mountain bike, please promise that the audio track in there is a slightly sped up version of George of the Jungle. Because Jeremy's going to be smacking into every tree
Yeah,
along
every
the
tree. Watch
way.
out for that tree.
Yeah, so when you go over a jump or something, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to power it through. You don't think I'm going to land it?
No.
No.
But also it's hard to get that airborne.
Because of my weight or the bike's weight?
Because of how the jumps are positioned. You generally don't have a lot of speed because it comes right out of a berm into a jump.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. No.
Although I will say, though, on when I was watching this, now there's two versions from Specialized. One of them was the Levo, and then they have the, Kenevo?
Kenevo.
Creo.
Kenevo.
So the Kenevo is the more downhill oriented. So going from a trail travel platform about 150 millimeters to a more downhill 180. And some of the new ones do have a dual crown fork.
Oh,
And
those
so-
just are cool looking.
So I mean, the Kenevo kind of gets in its own little niche of a e-bike world where it's a self shuttle bike. And so this is for y'all flatlanders. So in the mountains world, you get to go and shuttle bikes. And so you'll put bikes in the back of a truck, drive to the top of the mountain, get out, and then either have someone drive down and everyone else rides. This bike allows you to pedal up that mountain. That's really not a mountain bike trail. You pedal up
No
through some
taco
just
needed.
nastiness.
I'm suddenly really looking forward to the Chicago car show because there's going to be some concept electric car that can also charge an electric bike. So you can drive your bike to go mountain biking while you're charging it the entire time.
Just have a spare
spare
battery.
Oh, yeah.
That's And
Oh,
so,
I thought you were saying the bike was the spare.
or that, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's
or the
always
bike.
great having more than one bike. as from personal experience, having multiple batteries is a very common thing in the mountain bike world. Just because if you want to have more range, you want to have more freedom. If you're using it to commute, some folks will do battery at home, battery at work. Make sure that you always have one that can be charged. So yeah, there's little things like this can really extend your use of the bike.
Never thought of that actually when
was that,
looking at it, having extra batteries.
So you can actually charge these batteries off the bike. They don't have to, it's not part of the frame, as it were, where you can just plug in to like your down tube and it automatically wires to the battery.
And that's one where, generally speaking, yes. There's so many different brands, so many different iterations. E-bikes have come from the major manufacturers, have been around really since like 2010 is when some large companies started coming out with them. Yeah, I'm sure there's some that you have only the charge port on the bike. It's got to be there. But all the current stuff that I've seen lately is all of it able to be charged on or off the bike.
No, that's brilliant because that really shows the evolution of the product in thinking about the holistic view for the consumer.
Yep.
Early on, I remember seeing e-bikes where it was like a commuter rack on the back wheel.
Yeah, no, this
and
still
the battery
exists,
was
yeah.
just stacked right there, but you couldn't remove the battery. It was stuck there.
A lot of them you still could, though, actually. Yeah, there was a key that you could actually disengage a battery and slide it out. And some of those from the so, Mark, you and I had sold some Bosch products, some Shimano E-Step products, etc. And some of them had adapters that you could just plug your battery in. So you could bring it into the office, put it under your desk, and charge it.
But since you're commuting on your e-bike, you've got spare batteries. Maintenance is easily something you can do at home, though, right?
No.
No?
No.
Oh. I'm a little
Go
nervous.
to your
You're laughing.
licensed dealer.
You're kind of laughing. That makes me nervous.
And
Some
so-
things you don't open, like a nuclear reactor.
Yeah. And so with my experience with working for Specialized as a warranty rep, troubleshooting on e-bikes is a whole nother bag, whole nother cup of tea that a lot of traditional bike mechanics had not worked through any kind of a process before.
All right.
Because you have sometimes, multiple different electronic components that need to communicate to each other, tracing down what is the cause of a fault. Is it the speed sensor? Is it the cadence sensor? Is it the wiring harness? Is it the adapter from the battery to motor? I mean, there's so many different little parts that bike mechanics traditionally weren't used to looking for or figuring out how to diagnose. So that's one where, if you're having an issue with your e-bike, bring it to your local retailer where you purchased the bike. That's going to be the best place to go, generally speaking, for service, or someone that's very familiar with that product. A dealer that's really great with Bosch probably hasn't seen too much Yamaha. And so there's a lot of that information that's difficult, and there's a lot of proprietary tools between each manufacturer of the components. So
I'm suddenly getting a flashback to my beater car back in college where if every time it would break down, I was without a car for a week. Is that going to be the same thing you can expect?
I don't want to go there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, though, when it comes to this is if you have that 30-year mechanic and he's been working on whether it's your Colnago, Pinarello, all these, you can't automatically assume that they are fully up to date because this is a different type of diagnostic experience. When we went through some of our training, Mark, from diagnostic tools that plug in, very similar to your OBD2 type car readers, for example, all the way to using a laptop to program and make these changes, functions, and firmware updates. It's not necessarily the mechanic who's 30 years and working on old mechanicals. He won't necessarily be ready for it.
No, absolutely not. Now, when I did a Bosch training,
A Bosch?
Be nice. Bosch happens to be where the werewolves are.
Now I'm going to screw it up again.
Where the
When I
wild
did-
Bosch werewolf.
When I did,
Bosch, werewolves of London.
I'm going to really screw it up. Bosch.
Bosch.
Now, when I did a Bosch training, they said, okay, so if it's not working, you take it off the bike, you put it in this box, and you send it to us.
Yeah.
And we'll send you the fixed one.
Yep.
So they don't even want the 30-year mechanic who
Right.
is great at adjusting derailleurs, great at DI2. They don't want you touching it.
I volunteered to be our e-bike maintenance tech in the shop. It sounds like this is a job that even I can handle.
See,
I
no.
know how to use UPS.
What he's referring to is removing the motor from the bike, which is generally about an 8-step process to get the motor out.
No, I've
to ship it.
I've seen your tool wall. You have a hacksaw. Figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're not touching tools. No more of this now. But so yeah, and that's to Merck's point about the motor assemblies. The motor assemblies are very difficult to work with, and have taken them apart from the manufacturer level. Some of the tools needed to either put them back together or tension the belt properly or do get the spark clutch in the right position are thousands of dollars. Some of the like micrometers and some of the tools that you use. So it is something where it is generally speaking best practice for that mechanic to diagnose, understand what the problem is, and then get that one replacement part and just get a new motor, and get that swap.
Well, because the thing that kind of I thought of when I first looked at how these are actually built is with a desktop computer. You can build your own. There's lots of space inside. You can replace parts. When you have a laptop, imagine all of that stuff crushed into 1/10 the space. That's kind of like the integration of these e-bikes. Those motors aren't just loose and flappy on the inside of the bottom bracket. They're really not.
Especially when they're the product that you're actually pedaling around.
Yeah. So the amount of space to actually work in there is super small. So that's just a little bit about e-bikes. One thing I will say, though, if you are in the area of the Crank Revolution Bike Shop, stop by. We do have e-bikes, and we're more than willing to send you out on a day adventure.
Absolutely, yeah. Try it out. It's a lot of fun. We have coffee, too. Coffee's going well.
Coffee's good.
Oh, my friends, that has been another episode of the Crank Revolution podcast. First thing we'd like to say is thank you. Thanks for being our listeners and sharing the show with your friends. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. We love the feedback. You can reach out to us by email at crankrevolutioncycling@gmail.com and find us on Facebook at Crank Revolution Media.